Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to West Day 2 and our Information Warfare Speaker Series. Just want to let you know that we've got 3 presentations scattered throughout the day. The first one, I'll introduce Chris in just a second. At 10:50, we do the Digital Transformation Panel, moderated by Dolores Washburn. And this afternoon, we've got some of our young officers and a young enlisted, the Navy Cyber Competition Team, going to give a little demonstration. So, good day of events here in the pavilion, and I'm not going to take much more time except to say I'm welcoming Chris Page to the stage. Chris is a retired naval officer, communicator for many years, and he's now working in NIA, Naval Information Activity, and the Office of Naval Intelligence, which he's representing today. So, Chris.
Thank you very much. Well, good morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for coming today, and thank you for the kind introduction. I am, as Mr. Gradisher laid out, Christopher Page, and it's my honor to be here today representing some of the greatest men and women you will ever meet. They labor around the world and around the clock, often in the shadows, and way too often at great risk. They are engineers and scientists, collectors and analysts, linguists and technologists, mathematicians, and academic professionals. They are naval intelligence, and their job is to know the enemy. Know the enemy. That maxim is older than Sulla and even older than Sun Tzu. Knowledge of the enemy has been the key differentiator between victory and defeat ever since war has been a part of the human experience. Militaries, particularly navies, that commit the treasure and blood required to know the enemy increase their odds of victory in combat. Those that don't all but condemn themselves to the ash heap of history. Now, fortunately, our Navy, America's Navy, has embraced this reality since 1882. In that year, it wisely established the Office of Naval Intelligence, the longest continuously serving member of what we now know as the United States intelligence community. For the past 138 years, ONI and the enterprise that grew around it have been relentlessly focused on the task of knowing those who sought to oppose the United States Navy on, under, above, and from the sea. Now, during that period, our enterprise has demonstrated a remarkable ability to think ahead, to anticipate change, and to adapt, to become the organization that our Navy and our nation needed to face the enemies of the time. Whether we're talking about the Spanish Navy of the 1890s, the German and Japanese navies of World Wars I and II, the Soviet Navy of the Cold War, and the many regular and irregular forces that we faced during the period from Desert Shield all the way through the culmination of the global war on terror, and the adversaries we face today in this era of renewed great power competition. Along the way, we've gotten to be pretty good at what we do. Our adversaries would be right and wise to fear the capabilities and capacities that we bring to the fight. Now, while we're good, we're not as good as we want to be. We want, need, and will be better. Strike that. Not just better, but great. And that quest for greatness very much underpins and serves as the central theme of this unclassified document that Vice Admiral Kohler, in his capacity as both the Deputy Chief of Naval Operations for Information Warfare and Director of Naval Intelligence, gave us last June. Now, the title, Delivering Intelligence Advantage to Warfighters from the Seabed to Space, makes pretty clear what it's about. What I'd like to do in advance of giving you the opportunity to read it in more depth and detail is let you know that it's really focused on 3 strategic imperatives, 3 things that we must do to be great. It also talks about 5 requirements that we've imposed upon ourselves as we seek to honor those imperatives. And I think most directly for this audience, it'll hint at 4 or 5 things that I believe you can do to help us in this noble quest. Now, when it comes to those strategic imperatives, what I tell you is the first one is stated in there as to be able to counter the adversary's information and operation security. Put simply, to steal their secrets. Using the full range, the broadening range of traditional and non-traditional intelligence collection operations available to us. Everything that is legal, moral, and ethical is at our disposal. And I'll tell you that, as has been the case ever since, again, intelligence organizations came about, the mastery of spies, sensors, and other data-generating sources is of absolute importance. And it's something that we intend to do extremely well. The second thing is to be able to take all that data and use it to generate all-source predictive assessments, to rely upon the depth and detail of understanding that our analysts have established over the years, to be able to harness that analytical expertise, the ability to drive collection, and the ability to make sense of collected data in such a way that we give our Navy, our fleet, and our acquisition community the advantage of forewarning. The third thing is it's not enough to be able just to understand the threat. We need to be able to communicate it, and to communicate it to a consumer audience that includes not just human decision makers, but to an increasing degree machines. Whether the machines in questions are live, virtual, and constructive testing systems, whether they are operational evaluation systems, wargaming systems, or at the very top of that pinnacle of power, those fifth-generation platforms and weapons that have become dependent on structured intelligence mission data in order to perform at their peak combative proficiency. Now, this is where we faced our biggest challenges, but it's also where we have our greatest opportunities to generate high payoff outcomes for the fleet and the acquisition community. So I try to break down those imperatives into the things that we know that we require of ourselves. The first, and it should be no surprise to anybody who has been in the intelligence field or anybody who has been a consumer of our intelligence, and that is that we must retain and build upon the world-class excellence that we've developed in the area of operational intelligence. There are few things more important than to be able to provide timely warning to operational decision makers, to provide warning with the levels of timeliness, precision, and relevancy demanded to generate the sort of outcomes that we heard Alma Becker talk about yesterday in his summarization of what happened during the lead up to the Battle of Midway. That's an ongoing daily challenge. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, and a lot of work in the area of really trying to harvest in much more granularity the increasing volumes and veracity and varieties of data that are available to our op intel professionals. The second thing that we are demanding of ourselves, requiring of ourselves, is to up our game when it comes to engaging with our long-standing allies and with other foreign partners who share our nation's interests relative to the great power competition. There's a lot to be gained by working hand in glove with our allies and partners around the world. A lot to be gained both in terms of the placement and access and expertise they provide, but also the technologies, the tools, the tradecraft that they're developing within their own areas of responsibility. That partnership makes us greater than we would be on our own and does more than just augment our own workforce. The third is to generate real, tangible, meaningful advantage for the Navy. And a lot of that goes back to what I discussed earlier, and this is the knowledge that our systems, our platforms, our tools for warfare are very much dependent and powered, in fact, by real in-depth intelligence mission data, by models, and by simulations. There are lots of areas where we seek to add decisive value. This is one area where, again, we see a real opportunity to achieve major breakthroughs quickly and in a way that's going to make a lasting difference to the nation. Concepts. While certain things remain fundamental and foundational, and I will tell you that timeliness, relevancy, accuracy are always going to matter, we're really trying to rethink how we go about achieving those sorts of qualities. And a lot of this has to do with being able to dig back into the data in ways that were never before even conceivable. There's some extremely interesting things that we're doing with advanced analytics, with artificial intelligence, with such AI techniques as machine learning, and just abundantly proud of what the team has achieved so far, but I know it's just the beginning. And again, as we really begin to reconceptualize how we go about doing our business, I think we can have significant positive impacts on the rest of the Navy. The next is protection. You've heard it several times in the town halls, you've heard it several times on the floor. Just like we are engaged in trying to break the security of others, they're actively engaged in trying to break ours. Part of the effort is just simply to stop the bleeding, but more so than that is to provide a hard target for our foreign intelligence adversaries. A lot of interest you'll see in this, in really trying to explain to the public and to ourselves what we're doing through the revitalization of counterintelligence. The next thing is to grow professionally as a workforce. We know that there are a lot of knowledge, skills, and abilities that we have, but we know there's a lot more that we need. And so in our outreach to academia, in our outreach to industry, and what we're trying to do internally and as part of the overall learning strategy of the Navy, we want to up our game. I tell you, a lot of discussions this week about what motivates people to join, what motivates people to stay. And from my experience, we offer people the opportunity to learn something new, and they jump all over it. I'm just excited by the energy that I see in young and old alike throughout the workforce, and I'm very much looking for ideas about how to harness that energy. Now, what does that all mean to you? What are some of those needs? What are the things that we expect from those who are on the journey with us? Well, one of the first things, and I'll echo what we heard Mr. Weiss talked about, is just like every other part of the Navy, we have an urgent need to modernize, to defend, and to innovate with our information technology. And that includes not just the network, so that is certainly a big part of it, but our applications, our data services, and our security controls. That's all kind of wrapped up in a big strategy we call NAVIT 1, or the Naval Intelligence Operationally Networked Enterprise. I'll tell you that our task champion for that is here with me this week, and that is Captain Tracy Hines, who's the commanding officer of the Hopper Information Services Center. I urge you to reach out to her. The second thing, and it goes back to our point about recognizing that within all this IT, we've got data. And within the data, we have huge potential mission value. And we can unlock that value by really getting good at the art and science of intelligence mission data, modeling, and simulation. We want to get to the point where the warfighter, the developer, is able to get to the data they need on demand. You know what we know as soon as we have it out there. And this is something called ELCA, Engineering Level Characterization of the Adversary. And for that particular effort, our task champion is also here with me this week, Captain Danny Knowles, the commanding officer of the Farragut Technical Analysis Center. And again, one of our true thought and action leaders within naval intelligence. The third thing is, again, it's good to be able to serve up the data. It's good to be able to do it dynamically and on demand. But again, we know there's so much value that we can unlock by taking bold and innovative use of things like AI/ML and other advanced analytic techniques. We've organized that under a group called the NATL. Forgive me for the acronym, but it's the Naval Intelligence Advanced Analytics and Data Innovation Laboratory. Again, a gold doubloon for a better name. But this is where we're really trying to bring thoughts together and synchronize actions and activities. And then the last one I'm going to leave with you in terms of where we're looking for help has a lot to do with our most important asset, and that's our people. We know we want to improve the human-machine interfaces. We've heard even in the discussions from the CIO that we know that the way that we're presenting technology to our professionals is not in keeping with the modern era. Even more importantly, we know that there's things that we can do to make them more effective, more efficient, more ethical in the practice of the craft of intelligence. We are very much excited about opportunities in that area. And then the other one, and this is part of that as well too, is to develop their competencies. We're looking very wide and deep for both traditional and non-traditional sources of learning, both traditional schoolhouses and the non-traditional ways. And again, what we're trying to do is to tailor the learning experience to the needs of our people. And again, very interested in thoughts that people have. Now that's what we're doing to try to get to know the enemy. I'd like to get to know you. So tell me what questions I can answer for you today. Hit me with something. Yeah. Okay, good. There we are. Thank you. Yeah.
Hi, Sam Legrone with USNI News.
Good morning. Hi.
Reporter. I really enjoyed the PLA Navy report in 2015. We
Okay,
really
good.
enjoyed the Russian Navy report with 2016, the Iranian
Yes.
Navy report. All that ONI products are great. I would like to see more of them on the public-facing side. So what plans do you all have in the future? And I'm just going back to think of like, John Lehman's like 600 ship Navy piece from proceedings back in the day. He made a big point. It was just like every single American should know that there are Russian submarines prowling off the East Coast. And it seems that we're getting less of that information lately. When's the new stuff coming? Thank you.
I thank you very much, and I'm delighted by the positive feedback. So if you didn't hear that, we kind of echoing back to the old, Soviet military power, which was an annual report that Defense Intelligence spearheaded, and that, I'll tell you, as a young person, I found inspiring. Because it really did a lot to help open my eyes even before I decided what I wanted to do when I grew up. So we had taken some measures, and you laid out a few. We've got some products out there that at the unclassified, releasable to the international public level, talk about three of the foreign powers of high interest to us. We have a product that, as the gentleman laid out, we put out a couple years ago called Russia, a historical transition. We put out one, Iran, a tale of two navies, and one that really preceded those, and that was a big deal on China. And again, if you go to the ONI website, we've got not just the big thick books, but recognition charts and other things that you can download. And again, I can't promise you a delivery schedule, but I do know, and I'll get back to you, that we do have plans to get that out there. The other one I'd urge people to take a look at is that even though it may be of less interest to this particular group, that may be of interest to others here, is that we also do put out weekly and monthly products on threats to shipping. And so, yeah, that's great. I'm glad to see that someone's interested in that, and we'll keep those cards and letters coming to you. Yeah.
Good morning, Captain. Commander Kostenko with Naval Special Warfare Command. Sir, thank you for your presentation and your time in uniform and now serving as a DICEL
Thank you.
for us forces. My question is on the human-machine interface.
Yes.
In particular, taking our hands off the steering wheel. What I mean by that is, on the way over here this morning, Chief Clabo was in the vehicle with me, and I took my hands off the Tesla, and he was in awe, saying, "Oh, you're driving over the Coronado Bridge on autopilot." So back to this interface, whether it's targeting with a certain degree of confidence, 90+%, or dropping ordnance, what are our thoughts as we lead into the expectations in the future on taking our hands off the steering wheel, sir?
No, that is thank you very much. Extremely good question. First, I must caution everybody, please keep your hands on the wheel while driving across the Coronado Bridge. But I take your point. So one of the things that we have been having a lot of discussion about, especially within the IC, is on that very subject. How much do we rely on automation? And I'll tell you that what the IC has done, and I'm glad they did, is they've crafted the title Augmenting Intelligence with Machines. And part of it was to send the signal to our own workforce and others that the plan right now is not to go full auto. We really do want to make sure that the human remains in the loop so that we're applying analytical judgment. But I'll tell you right now, that is a debate that goes on every day. The opportunities are there to go hands-off on some things, but I think between intelligence oversight, between the adherence to strict principles, the desire to make sure that whatever judgments we provide, knowing that they make a life or death difference, that a human being has looked at it, I anticipate we're going to continue to be in the loop for a while. But please, keep that question out there, because the answer may change next year. Yeah, thanks.
And good morning, sir. Thank you.
Sir.
Sinclair Harris, retired sailor. The Secretary, Acting Secretary, has been pushing the Education for Sea Power initiative a lot. How does Navy Intel expect to take advantage of that? Where do you see it going to benefit sailors E1 and up?
Thank you, Admiral. I appreciate that. So a couple things. One, we're a contributor to that. I kind of had, it was neat. One of the fun experiences I've had over the last couple months was to sit on the first meeting of that Chief Warrant Officer Council. And part of what our contribution is, go back to the gentleman's question, is what is it that we want everybody in the Department of the Navy to know at a fundamental level about the Chinese, Russian, and other threats. And so this is also stimulating the need to go back and revisit some of our unclassified publications. Now, in terms of for ourselves, as the CIO, I got very selfish and immediately said, I want to jump on that Community College of the Navy program and get a lot of our IT men and others through to get some certificates and associate's degrees. Yes, but I also recognize as a member of the broader community that we really want to try to shape what it is that the Community College of the Navy and the overall Navy education program is going to provide. And that means things like we know that we are getting a lot of value out of the academy in terms of midshipmen who are becoming officers and joining our ranks. We know that I'm a graduate of the postgraduate school, and thank goodness for it. I want that to continue to do some amazing things. And yeah, I actually stayed away through War College and go out of that too. Now, we also have the advantage in that in addition to the great work that the Don is doing on the future of education and learning in general, the IC is upping its game with the National Intelligence University, or NIU. And so for me, what I love about it is we got this very, very rich opportunity space. And so now the challenge is trying to find those people maybe reluctant to get up out of their cubicles and go learn something. And then maybe slowing down the people who are too enthusiastic. So a lot of the discussion now is really trying to understand what is it we need in terms of knowledge, skills, and ability, and what is it we can get out of the big Don and the big IC, and then how do we match people up to that. So, thanks, sir.
Hello, Captain Page.
Good
Good to
morning.
see you again.
Good seeing you too. Yeah.
Increasingly, being able to exploit an enemy's supply chain and industrial base is an easy win,
Yes.
and it sort of gets you left of boom. I was wondering if you can characterize what ONI is doing in those areas broadly, and where you need help. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I'm going to step back a little bit, give you some historical examples. I think it'll help inform, where we are going forward. Even though as an intel guy, I would recommend everybody to go read Admiral Layton's great book. I also, as a naval professional, tell you, go read Admiral Eccles, Logistics and the Art of the National Defense, I think it is. I read it, changed my life. I mean, it really does help illustrate why the logistics chains were very important to us winning World War II and very important to the Japanese losing World War II. Now, that translates in a lot of what we're thinking is today. I'll tell you again, as the CIO and as the authorizing official, this is one of those few things that does keep me up at night. We are spending a heck of a lot of time looking at our own supply chain risk management and looking at the adversaries. I can't go into more detail than that, but I want to tell you that it's definitely got our attention. It's the kind of thing that I probably wouldn't have even thought about as a top issue last year, and it is like every other conversation this year. So I don't know if that helps or not. But yeah. All right, any others? Yeah. Well, thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Yeah.